So one of the coolest things in modern IDEs like Eclipse is their support for smart code completion like this. And what Graphite is an extension to the Eclipse IDE that makes code completion a little bit smarter in the context of class instantiation. So let's say we're trying to instantiate this class color from the Java standard library. Maybe we don't know quite how to do that for the color that we want, so we can press Control Space to see if we can get some help from the IDE. With the Graphite plugin installed, we can see that the plugin has found a palette associated with the class that we're trying to instantiate. It says, hey, there's a color chooser available. And if you want to use that, you go ahead and press Enter, and we get a color palette. We can interact with this palette in a couple of different ways. We can use our mouse if we're into that sort of thing to select from one of the standard Java colors here. Or you can actually keep your hands on the keyboard and enter any valid CSS color string here. So that works. Cool. Say we want to enter the color navy, which is one of the CSS colors, but it's not one of the standard Java colors. So no problem. Looks like it recognized that. Once we have what we want, we can press the Enter key. And what happened was the palette generated code to instantiate the class that we wanted, this color class, with the parameters that we had entered inside that palette. So this is how we get the color navy. Cool. So say we change our mind. We don't want navy anymore. We want maybe the color maroon. So no problem. You just select the code that had been inserted previously and pull up the color chooser again and change it from navy to maroon. There's maroon. Great. So you might be wondering, how did Graphite realize that this palette existed for this class color? How do I make my own palettes? That sort of thing. So there's a couple of different ways that Graphite can discover a palette associated with a class. For classes like the color class in the standard library or other libraries that you don't have source code access to, you can go into the Graphite preferences and associate a palette with the class, the fully qualified name of the class explicitly. Or for classes that you are editing yourself or palettes that you're developing for the APIs that you write, you can actually use Java annotations to do that. So let's actually build a palette of our very own, a sort of hello world palette, and go through that whole process. It's actually quite easy. And one reason for that is because palettes are actually just web pages. They're written in HTML, JavaScript, CSS. You can do anything you can do inside a browser. So let's make our hello.html page and keep it pretty simple. Just make a little button here. It says hello. And when the user clicks on that button, we want to insert some code into the editor. Insert a greeting. And so the way we can do that is by using this graphite.insert API function. And we pass it a string. Let's say we want to greet a specific person given by the current selection inside the editor. So we can do that by calling this method getSelectedText. Close off that greeting there, and we have our button. Of course, we're not quite done. Those functions have to come from somewhere, and so Graphite provides a little JavaScript file that will be online at some point. I happen to know right now it's on my machine at this location. So just import that, and we're done. Let's save our HTML file here. Because it's just an HTML file, we can actually look at it and even debug it inside a web browser. So here is our hello palette. Here's our hello button inside Chrome. We can go and use the developer tools to make sure it works. You can see that Graphite realizes that it's running in a non-editor environment, and so it works a little differently here. If you click the button here, it says try to get the selected text, but of course there's no selected text in this context, so when you try to insert, it just says hello undefined because the selected text was undefined. But this is enough to let us know that the palette looks like it's working. So let's associate it with our hello class. So here's a class hello, a little stub class, and we can associate a palette with the class here by using the Graphite palette annotation, which we have to import. We can use the URL parameter to associate the palette by URL. Copy that from Chrome. We can add a description if we want. And that's it. So let's go ahead and test our hello palette. We wanted to be able to provide a name, so let's provide a name, highlight it, and pull up our palette. There's our hello button, and if all went well, we should be able to click this and see our greeting, and it worked. Great. So palettes aren't too bad to make. Let's actually now show you an example of a palette that's a little bit more useful than this Hello World palette, even more useful than that color palette even. So say we're working with regular expression patterns in Java. So that's those are part of the standard library. I import that class here, and we want to create a pattern to match some strings. But we don't quite know how to, that's kind of a hard thing to do. So let's ask for help. We pull up our regular expression workbench here. It's just a palette. And you can see you can enter a regex pattern. You can choose to ignore case or not. And then you can enter some positive test cases that should match, negative test cases that shouldn't match. So maybe let's start with tests. So we want to match times, things like that, maybe like that. But we shouldn't match things like that, or just numbers, things like that. Okay, so we can see that all these things are green. It looks like green means that they were matched by the pattern. It's a little strange, but if you go and look up the reference, you'll realize that regular expressions match any substring, so the regex will match every string. If we want to match the whole string, we have to do this, but no problem. Now let's try to measure our regex. We know we need some numbers, some digits, maybe 1 or 2 before the colon, maybe exactly 2 after the colon, and a space, or maybe not, optional space, and then AM or PM. Cool. Looks like we got most of our matches here, and these things aren't matching, which is good. This one isn't matching because, oh, yeah, we forgot to ignore case. So you can click that, and it works. If we want to avoid using the mouse, we can just press Control-I, and that also works. And we're done. So we press Enter to generate some code, and you can see we got a bunch of code. You might notice that it used the proper factory method to instantiate this pattern class. You can't actually use new pattern, which trips up some people. It also properly escaped your regexes for you, which also trips up people quite a bit. Since you're putting it inside a Java string, you have to sort of double escape these escape sequences. And inserted our flag for us, and it inserted all of our test cases inside a comment for us too, which we can maybe use to build a proper unit tests with, if we'd like, using our favorite testing framework. Cool. We can also do this. We can add new test cases right inside our code here, so we don't want to match temperatures either. And if we want to make sure that actually did what we wanted it to do, we can pull up our palette again with the code selected, and it will pull in the regular expression that we had entered, all our positive test cases, all our negative test cases, our flag, and of course our new test case, which looks like is correctly not being matched, so we're satisfied. Press Enter, keep that code. We're done. So without much fuss, we were able to write a regular expression. So I hope that was Cool. I hope that excited you to the possibilities of this tool. If you have any great ideas for palettes that might help in your application domains, or any other great ideas, feel free to get in touch. And thank you for watching.